Welcome everybody to this session, speed presentation. We all welcome you and welcome the presenters here. I have to be really fast. This is a very quick session. My name is Ela Karimlia. I'm a PhD fellow at KTH, Royal Institute of Technology here in Stockholm. We have a really great presenters today from different backgrounds, different fields. I'm sure you're going to enjoy all the presentations today. Please don't get angry of me. I have to be really tracking the time and showing you the signs and stuff like that. This is the speed presentation session. And please go to the next slide when you finish. And we don't have any time for asking questions or for commenting on each other's when we finish, but there is very nice barbecue and drinking, mingling 1 hour after, so you can keep track and talking to each other and discussing it later. So without any further ado, I start with the first presenters, please.
All right. Can you all hear me? Do I need a mic? No? No. Cool. All righty. My name's Jordan Lane. I'm an architect, and I've been working with a colleague of mine, Ulla Möller, on something we call MetaKit for architecture and public space. Okay. All right. Cool. So we all know what great public spaces feel like, and we all really can tell when they fall short. What are the real significant, important ingredients in creating, forming, planning, and discussing positive public space? So where are we now? We're rethinking the future of places. But when we rethink, we have to rethink the tools in which we're using. So while we're somewhat spoilt for choice in the digital realm with tools, we're sometimes over-equipped with toolbars and functions. I know when I opened up ArchiCAD for the first time, it scared the shit out of me. It seems that the analog space, how we meet, collaborate, work together, it really hasn't changed too much at all. So how can we better democratize design and the dialogue in the analog workspace to allow all participants to guide the development of their cities? We've developed an analog toolbar in a box. Looks like this. I'll pass these out so you can please give them back at the end. It's a kit of 60 cards, 60 essential ingredients, but in the process of making this product, we had 5 main challenges and 5 main questions. 1, we wanted to redefine the way we meet. How can we animate the analog workspace and meet each other better? How can we develop a visual overview together when we meet for the first time? How do we create those visual anchors to build and structure our ideas upon? How do we create a universal interface supporting the expert, the novice, and the generalist at the same time? How do we build a common language? And finally, how can we provide structure without imposing direction? So this is what I suppose a normal table looks like when you go to a meeting. Let's face it, you're sitting down, you're meeting somebody for the first time. There's great potential in a blank space or an empty sheet, but also a lot of work is needed right from the start to create the conditions necessary for your ideas and process to develop. Now, if you're lucky, somebody remembered to bring the good pens. And if you're really lucky, somebody bought the Post-its, and then you can have a workshop. And if it looks like this, then you've really lucked out and you're doing very well indeed. But that's not always the case. How can we support the animated analog workspace, providing a visual overview to create a flexible structure for your ideas? So I suppose distilling the field of architecture and public space into 60 key ingredients is not very easy. Some would say it's impossible. And of course, some projects will not need all of the 60 ingredients that we created. And of course, some will need extra ones which are missing. However, if you are able to create a common language with the people that you're working with and workshopping with, to understand these anchors, then you're doing very well. Now, the cards that we've created are deliberately simple for the expert, the generalist, and the novice. And really, if all else fails, if you can explain it to your grandmother, you're doing very well. So we have an icon, a title, and a byline. So the idea of these tools was to create structure without imposing set directions. So you can see, you can use them to define or undefine, to see prioritized or easy to develop ideas. You can put them on a wall to see how you are going in your project timeline or sort out what's defined and what isn't. It's a flexible and forgiving framework with no imposed answers. So what's next? We've taken on the architecture and public space, and now we're starting to work on informal settlements, urban ecology, and the rest of the list there. We really want to create a tactile taxonomy that when you sit down with somebody for the first time, you can have a common language. You can start to talk about the same things. You say, okay, well, what do you mean when you say vision? Well, I mean, it's the quality of life we're aiming towards. It may not be the same idea you came to the meeting with, but at least you have a starting point together. 1 minute left. Any questions? Honestly, throw them out there. You weren't expecting to have question time in a speed presentation. Yes?
How many times have you used it?
Many times. It's been a long process of ideation from developing the kit. So we've used it on a European level with URBACT projects. We've used it as a private level with architects, clients, ideating projects all the way from a new community centre to how do we restructure and redefine entire neighbourhoods. So quite a lot, yeah. Yes?
Have you used it at all so you wanted to tackle informal settlements as well? Have you used it at all in informal settlements or slum areas?
No, we haven't. We're creating, in the process of creating a more specialised kit for that, but I'd love to speak to anybody more about it at the end.
Did you manage to realize any the outcomes? Have they been realized as well?
The projects definitely have, and that's there. It's a tool for a process. Yeah, I have to go. Oh.
Hello, I'm Laura, I'm from Brazil, and here I'm going to talk about trying to do things in countries that you don't have enough financial resource to do it, basically, in public space. One case that we are working on is Largo de Batata. It means potato square, and it was a very lively place, but it was quite poor, in the middle of a very wealthy neighborhood. So we had a mayor back in 1997 that decided to clean it. And so we had 10 years of construction site. And after 50 million euros have been were spent, they opened this area just like this, as you see in the picture. So from there, we thought that we shouldn't see it as a problem, since it's not a problem of this specifically municipality, because it was in construction for so long that no one was really guilty about having spent so much money in an awful space. So we thought about looking to the space as an opportunity, as, for example, the Campo de Cebada in Madrid did, where it's quite common now. And how would we do it? We thought about involving people and the resources that we already had, since we wouldn't have any kind of financial support on doing that. And I really believe in this David Harvey quote that says that you should go for a city and, I mean, transform it, not the normal right to the city that people could think in the first place that it's accepting it as it is. What should we do then? We should improvise. That's a Brazilian specialty. we really do a lot of things improvising. And it's very related to placemaking since it's light, quick, cheap, and you have the result you want. We have our own word for kind of Brazilian MacGyverism, that is do much with almost nothing. The name of that is gambiarra, is the act of MacGyvering concrete solutions of utilitarian purposes by improvising methods and using any available materials, such as industrial artifacts. It represents the array of practices where the subversion of the original, pre-established use of an object plays a vital role in finding practical solutions for everyday needs. Well, simply using what you have to what you need. And in the Largo de Batata case, in the potato square case, it was not different. So we decided to occupy the square every Friday. Now we are doing that for 1.5 years now. Expecting that by using it, we would produce the space and change the dynamic of the place and make it livable and activating the place again. So we are doing that, and we had constructed urban furniture, and I brought some examples of activities with gambiarra style. We had a lot of open-air cinemas, using what we had, like linens or umbrellas, or even the things that they put to stop the cars from going up the square. We have done some performative zebras, or even painting that on the floor, since we wanted to cross in some places, and we had asked the authorities to do it, but they would say no. So we have done a couple of times, and actually 1 month ago, the main one, they officialized it. So it was quite a victory for us, since we have counted 9,000 people crossing this point every day. Here we have an example of urban furniture made out of pallets that we would collect from the streets. So now we have where to sit in the square. So actually, gambiarra is super useful to placemaking. I think it's very important because people say about informality, and as like most of the world, it's informal, and people think about formalizing it all. And I don't think it's really possible. So we should rather learn from the informal sides and try to find something between. On like it's not this formal Swedish life, but you don't have to live in a struggle as well. So thank you for that, and that's all.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Hannah. Normally, I work in Pomeranian Office for Regional Planning, so I'm the Special Planning Specialist, but I'm also a PhD student at the Gdańsk University of Technology in Poland, where we organized a project called Mentor and Student Research Lab, which has been a side event held for ISOCARP Congress in Gdynia, which has taken place last year. So the idea of this project was, first of all, to convince students that the research is as important as the designing process, but also we were trying to create a platform between the well-experienced international urban planners and our excited students that still has to learn quite a lot. And it was all possible thanks to our organizer and their energy. So we had 5 mentors coming from all over the world, even from different continents, with Rick Stevens on the forehead, who is now the president of the ISOCARP. And in this moment, we created like 5 groups of students. And they were researching 5 different topics, which, well, the local issues, but with an international overview thanks to our mentors. During that time, we have like 3 months for work. And during that time, we organized quite a lot of workshops, debates, lectures. But most of our work we have done through the internet, what was quite stressful for us as organizers. But actually, what was really surprising for us is that suddenly our students not only were using the help of our mentors, but also they started working with the students from abroad, like from Argentina or from United States. And for instance, one of our groups actually organized a workshop for the local community from one town in the United States. Everything we have done during that time we presented on our final conference in September, but we actually published our work 2 weeks ago with the printed version. I will leave it here so you can look at that, what we have done. And what is inside? It's the researches made by the students during 3 months' work. One of this is, for example, one group was researching the ideal Baltic city. One of our students from this team is sitting over there, so you can ask him questions what was really in this presentation. Another group was researching how to improve the sustainable mobility and what period of time do we need to implement this. And they were comparing different cities, how it works there. And I think the most important for us today is the public space manual that one team has created. And it starts with the flowchart, where you can find some basic rules that we should follow to create a really nice working public space. And we have there like 67 recommendations, but the list is still open. And it's divided in several sections. So if you have any suggestion what else should be there inside, you can add or contact us or work with us. And I think we should like connect our public space manual with the first presentation, and that would be the perfect work. So thank you very much. If you are interested what we have done, here is our website. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Charlton Ziervogel, and this is Evelyn Benekani, and we're going to speak about a practical example of informal settlement upgrading in an informal settlement in Cape Town called Flamingo Crescent. Just quickly, we're a set of organizations, a combination of community-based organizations and NGOs who are affiliated to Slum Dwellers International.
We have got some tools that we are working with in terms of mobilizing the communities to understand how they can plan their informal settlements. We start by doing community mobilization with daily savings that people organize themselves in terms of being understood that they are organized people of the community. And then we have got community-based data collection, which gives us the number of the people who are staying in that particular community, and whereby, through enumeration programs, they can be able to address their needs so that they can be able to understand which open spaces that they can identify and they need in their community. When doing that, they come up with a planning of their layout plan that comes out with the open spaces needed. They can be able to do a partnership with different spheres of government, starting from the local authority and the provincial authority, universities, and other people who can advise them in terms of planners, architects, and engineers.
Okay, so why Flamingo Crescent? Just very briefly, it's a relocation site. You can see the settlement there on the map. It's surrounded by a lot of industrial services, so there's actually a lot of job opportunities for the people who live in this informal settlement. There's also a bus route and a train station very nearby, very close, and it was done in partnership with the city because of an MOU signed. And it's linked to what we call a reblocking policy, which we help develop in the city. So what is this thing called reblocking? This is an example of another settlement. There's a before and an after picture. It's basically about being able to reorganize the shelters on the ground in a more organized fashion so that you can open up spaces. And these spaces can be public spaces, community spaces, and then also spaces to help install services, which is what the local government usually wants to do. The key to this process is that nobody gets moved off site. It's all done in situ and by the community themselves.
Here we see partners involved in the upgrading of Flamingo. Flamingo is one of our informal settlements that we found out of our profiling as we are doing citywide profiling and check which informal settlements need support. And then we found many people who can assist us in terms of partnering with us. City of Cape Town is one of our partners. And we've got Habitat, who has contributed much with material in the process of Flamingo. And then we've got the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, which assisted in terms of give capacity building into the community. And the Flamingo informal settlement, as you see, it has got 405 residents, and we managed to reblock into 104 structures. And then they had initially 14 chemical toilets, where only 7 toilets were working, and then they didn't have electricity, and 2 taps only were given to the community by the municipality. But through the process of mobilization, the community understood that they can be able to get more community taps and have a community daily saving that can work as a contribution towards their upgrading program. And then with the mapping, with the enumeration, the mapping and planning was done, and then we were assisted by the city in terms of looking at what size of roads that can be done according to the space that have been done out of reblocking program. And when the reblocking is taking place, the shacks are broke down because they were not built according to the plan. And then when breaking down, the people cannot go away out of the settlement. They can build a small shack next to the place where they have to rebuild. And then out of that program, the reconstruction of a new shack is done, and then the paving is opened, and open spaces for people to be able to have children, playgrounds, toilets, and other facilities, businesses, they design according to their will.
Okay, we're going to have to skip a little bit ahead. So the end result out of this process is that, like Evelyn described, they initially only had 14 chemical toilets, 7 of which were operational, 2 taps. The new configuration of Flamingo has resulted in a one-to-one service level. There's electricity, paved roads, as well as open courtyard spaces, which the community designed for themselves. And they kept the space out of all of this for a creche and a play park. I'm going to skip it just to the before picture so that you can see. So this is the settlement as it was in the beginning. And through this process, which Evelyn described, which was deep participation right from planning, even information collection and designing through to implementation, the settlement and the community managed to open up spaces so they could get adequate services as well as have safe places for their children to play, for economic activities.
In conclusion, we are very happy to have this opportunity in South Africa because we have got a lot of partnership in many provinces. We've got 5 cities that we are working with. We are still looking forward to have other cities partners. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlo Capra and I work for IHS, Erasmus University Rotterdam. So I'm going to talk about inclusive placemaking. At IHS, we are part of Erasmus University, and we work on a multidisciplinary approach. So we work with planning, with climate change, with infrastructure, with housing, land, and urban competitiveness and economic development. And as a multidisciplinary approach, we work with research, with advisory, and with education. And we really focus on capacity development for at a global perspective. So we look at the global discussion on sustainable development. Recently, as you know, the discussion is going on the urban SDG that hopefully will be adopted in September. So we recently hosted a workshop on capacity development, the capacity we need for sustainable urban development. And we developed a report that soon will be available, so if you're interested, you can contact me. And we know in this there is a target specific for public space. So what is our experience? IHS has a global experience, but also since we are based in Rotterdam, we take advantage of our location and we have our education and capacity development program in Rotterdam. So in 2015, in the first semester, we had, for example, 15 participants of our master in urban management and development from, I think, 14 different countries, going into 3 areas of Rotterdam. And these 3 areas, each one of them was analyzed and was really assessed by the students, by the participants. They looked into 3 neighborhoods, each one with a public space that they selected. And the goal of this process was to develop and apply tools to analyze, consult, and plan strategies for the public space. So this led to a process of the development of a vision and specific project for the public space that would help community to accomplishing them. And our unique perspective was to bring visions from all over the world to communities in Rotterdam and really look at different perspectives that might be not being taken before by the local governments and all stakeholders. So we developed a process. This process can be shaped in 3 parts. The first part is the analysis. But we really start from the city. We want to understand spaces, neighborhoods within the city. We identify neighborhoods, and we analyze the areas with tools on the physical aspects, the socioeconomic, the stakeholders, and then we move on, according to this analysis, to the generation of ideas. And we do this through consultations that the participant designed according to their local characteristics. And these ideas generated by the people can be used to define strategies for the place that are prioritized and presented back to the stakeholders. So from this, we get to the toolkit. The toolkit is composed of these 3 sections and is not a cookbook. Making places better and work is not a recipe. It's more a travel guide. You have to decide where you want to go, and then you can decide how you get there. And we can get there by the analysis, the generation of the ideas, and developing strategies. And as Lonely Planet teaches, you can do things in 1 day, in 1 week, in 1 month. So we think that the development of a placemaking, an inclusive placemaking, can be done in different rounds. So a first round of analysis, generation of ideas, and strategizing can be done in 1 day, then with a limited application of tools. A deeper analysis, a deeper generation of ideas, and a different strategies can be then developed with adequate resources. And the reason why we do this is that we want to come up with an advisory tool that can be applied in different contexts. This draws from the experience of IHS in different countries, and then can be applied to different requirements and resources available in terms of time and finances. So our placemaking approach moves from the two-dimensional, the physical, to includes academia perspective, international experience, and a different disciplines. So our placemaking is inclusive because it includes different disciplines, it includes people, and it's also, let's say, co-creative as it brings together the locals and the international perspective. And it will lead us to this process leads us to the development of this placemaking toolkit that we hope to apply soon all over the world. Thank you, and thank to my colleagues.
Good afternoon. That's all right. That's good. My name is Nancy Blankford. I'm an architect with HGA Architects based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm going to talk today about place matters, and specifically about the American Swedish Institute based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I could be foolish for talking about the Swedish Institute in Sweden, but that's what I'm going to do. We were charged with taking this historic mansion that you see and doing an addition and renovating the entire city block that it belonged to. And my premise is that anchoring institutions are not barriers to change, but really bridges to the future. And it starts with a long history. The Swedish Institute started in the early 1900s in this historic mansion that was built by a Swedish immigrant, built really around traditions of language, craft, plays, and continued through clubs. And the adage was it was a group of old guys and their dads. So we were charged with a membership that really had a lot of cultural connection to the place, to the building, and to their tradition, and really transformed the organization along with their leadership, who had the vision to try to reach out to a younger audience and broaden their relevance in Minneapolis. The building, as I said, was built in the early 1900s, and it was located in a neighborhood called Phillips West that had changed quite a bit over time. In the early 1900s, this was the place to live if you were wealthy. Swan Turnblad, who built this mansion, was the first to own an electric car, which you can see him in that photo. And he really wanted to pride himself on that he had made it in the city. So the problem was it's a French chateau, basically. Very inward, dark, focused, and looks very private. And yet the neighborhood had evolved. Today, it's primarily an African-American neighborhood, pretty economically impoverished. 3/4 of the population you can see here are below poverty level economically. And when you look at the neighborhood, it's really disintegrated over time. There are a lot of gaps in the fabric, lots of parking lots for institutions that had moved in, and certainly the American Swedish Institute was one of them. They needed parking for their facility. Hence, they had a whole city block. And so our charge, I think, was, the solution to this problem was they both needed each other. The neighborhood needed a place for community gathering, and the Institute needed a younger, more diverse audience. And so how do we let them have that symbiotic relationship? And we did that through both the design and through the exterior spaces and through programming that the Institute puts on. You can see in this diagram that the mansion is very inwardly focused. Those are the arrows going in. It had a beautiful center lobby, again, crafts all over the place, woodworking, stone. And our design was to really create a pinwheel, make it much more open, outwardly focused. And that really presented a much more welcoming, inviting attitude. And I think those spaces that were created by the addition on the exterior also became an armature for reaching out to the neighborhood and creating community gathering space. So the outcome really does provide some key messages about placemaking. Certainly it became a much more connected facility and bridged their future because they were connecting to the neighborhood that they were in. It was meaningful and relevant connections to the existing demographic. And now the narrative was really much more about inclusion rather than exclusion. So everyone was welcome here, not just Swedish. And then the design itself, at the top, you used to really only be able to enter the mansion in 2 places. And now there's a courtyard where you can enter. There's a rooftop for visual connections. The windows also open up the space. And then the entry is much more welcoming. It's also authentic. Again, thinking about this always being a place of Swedish heritage in Minneapolis, it was a French chateau. So how did we connect it to Swedish culture through the way that it looks? And that was through light, through windows, through color. It was a comfortable space that, again, was welcoming and sympathetic to the mansion and the heritage that was there, a place to sit and rest. Social. So the events that happen in this courtyard are phenomenal. There are evening drinks at the castle. There's festivals, craft festivals that happen. And it's certainly a space that people take pride in. And lastly, it's active. This is a midsummer festival that happens there. But it's a space that's flexible for different size events. It could be a place for a couple of people to meet in the neighborhood as they're walking by, or it could be a large event like the midsummer event. So lastly, we think it was a success, and clearly it's been a success for the institution. They've grown their demographics, their audience is much younger. They are allowed to live their values through environment stewardship, through art, through culture. And for the Phillips West neighborhood, it creates a common ground for their community. It strengthens an asset that's there, so it contributes to a positive identity. And it's also a catalyst for economic and community development. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Danica Buisman, and I'm the founder of State of Flux, and we program public space to create innovative cities. And today I would like to talk to you about maximizing the potential of our cities by creating a continuous flow of interaction between different cultures. And our method is programming public space. And I will lead you through our learnings via 3 examples that I was part of. Our cities have all the ingredients to be an innovative machine. And as Charles Landry said, the biggest resource of our cities are our people. But our cities get more segregated by the day, and many people are not involved in building and creating our cities. And as such, we underuse our potential to be innovative. So innovation comes from connecting different points of view, and it leads to inspiration, which leads to new ideas. And connecting different points of view should not only take place within similar cultures, as it often does in segregated surroundings, but should also, and even more importantly, take place between different cultures. In Holland, some 50% of our cities are ethnic minorities. And we haven't even begun to dip our toe in this pool of new insights. And I realized this in 2008 when I created No Label. And No Label showed the artist of the future. And we mixed different cultures and different styles and different people. And our biggest success was the debut of Kindman's Hip Hop Orchestra, which band members you see right here. And all the band leader Colin needed was the right setting, and he took off, leaving us with the most innovative music in Holland in a decade. So we currently witness the underuse of our public spaces, and we should use program to maximize its use and to maximize connecting different people and ideas, and as such, maximize our city's potentials. So why public space? It are our public spaces that have the natural ability to draw and connect, and to let different people interact. Because they are open for a diverse group of people, and because they are places of collective life, and as there is no financial boundary since they are free of charge. multi-art complex De Tolhuistuin in the north of Amsterdam made me see the importance of attractive public space. And between 2010 and 2012, I was the financial director of this old working place of Shell that was temporarily assigned for cultural programming. And at its heart is this beautiful ancient park that we used to create a community of all different kinds of people. People from the surrounding neighborhoods, the neglected surrounding neighborhoods. Artists from all kinds of different cultures, and trendy inhabitants from other parts of Amsterdam. And it led to this cultural hotspot that caught the eye of the New York Times and the Washington Post and the BBC, of which, of course, we were very proud. So why programming? Markets, festival, get-togethers, community, gardenings, workshops, music. It are all program options that not only invite people to visit, but can also create an environment of casual connection. And these connections can reaffirm or counteract our viewpoints, and in such break down barriers which lead to new ideas. So design can set the stage, but program connects. Program can make us and our ideas interact. We showed this in 2014 when we co-created our market of the future. And this is not only a market where you can buy your groceries and your cheap trinkets and cheap fashion, but a market that connects different people and different cultures. We use street food vendors from all kinds of different backgrounds, and music and dinner and long tables and design. And staged a market that attracted a multitude of different backgrounds, a mix of cultures in a shared experience that sometimes interacted. And the city government is since then working hard to make this one-off into a monthly event. So what we've experienced is that we need to see our public spaces not just as places to create communities, but as places that can lead to inspiration. And it's a vital component to our knowledge society that thrives on a continuous flow of new ideas. And we need to see program at the core of creating these inspirational places by making different people and ideas not only connect, but interact. And then we will truly use the potential of our cities and our people to be innovative. So again, I'm Danica, and I hope to see you all in this conference and talk to you a little bit more about our ideas. Thank you.
I got stuck there for a second. Hello, my name is Sander. Can everybody hear me? Thank you for all still being here. I assume it's a long day for everybody, so as it is a speed presentation, I will make it short. As said, my name is Sander Schur. I work for White Architects, a firm here in Stockholm, as well as the founding partner of the platform, which is a collaboration between the cities of New York and Stockholm. As we know, everybody's moving towards the cities more and more. More than half of the population of the planet is living in cities at the moment, and that is only getting more and more in the future, as it is predicted in 2050. 75% might be living in cities. And as cities contain most of our population, our infrastructure, and are the centers of our economy, we can argue whether that's a good development, yes or no, because we're making ourselves pretty vulnerable. So what are we vulnerable of? As an architect or city planner, you quite often make a design for something that will not be in place for God knows how long. Our office is working on the moving of the city of Kiruna in the north of Sweden, which will be finished about 100 years from now. So everybody working on a project will not even see the end result. So those are the future uncertainties we as architects should be dealing with and take into account. This is an image of Detroit. It's a little bit less hallelujah of an image than Bruce Katz showed us this morning about Detroit, but Detroit lost 25% of the population in less than a decade. And I'm quite confident to say that the city planners of Detroit never considered that when designing the city. Another future uncertainty was Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy, and depends on which insurance company you ask how to call it. But that's another discussion. But it was not the most heavy storm of the year, but it kind of puts us back in place, at least in the Western world, that this might happen and we have to do something. What is our reaction then? Our reaction is we have to be resilient. We have to be healthy in a way that if we get sick, or in this case in the boxing match, if we get punched on the nose, we have to get back to our feet as soon as possible. We have to be in the right shape. We did a competition with White, and we argue you have to make sure you don't get hit in the first place, rather than being able to recover quickly. And that's a change of view. When I was a kid, I went on a bike ride with my grandparents, and my bike fell, and the first reaction is to walk over to your bike and put it back up. But my grandmother said, like, if it's laying, it will not fall again. And that's the way we have to look at our urban environments in our cities. It's a change of view. Maybe we are not living in the right way and we should do things different. So our project we did with White for the area of Fern East on the Rockaways, south of Jamaica Bay, next to New York City, is a way for us to be adaptive in urban planning. And as you can see in the plan, and being adaptive is not starting from scratch. It's not one big experiment. It's in that sense you can make every plan adaptive. And obviously, if we're talking about great ants, in this specific case, we're envisioning a new home for the community of our Fern East, and we don't want to put them in an experiment. We want to give them something they know, and we know as architects that works. So the Great Ants is the community of our Fern East, and you build a community by a variety of public spaces. As people move and people go, we heard that in Holland 50% of the urban population is minorities from different countries. That's not that extreme here in Sweden, but most certainly so in New York. And it's dynamic. Chinatown on Manhattan is taking over Little Italy. So it's always a dynamic, and our cities have to be able to adapt. Our places have to be able to adapt. And one way of doing so is create a diversity of public space, rather than to put all your money on one specific urban area. And in the case of a hurricane, we have to deal with the aspects of the hurricane, not in a mono solution to build one big dike or one big levee. We have to do it step by step. When the water rises, in the case of Hurricane Sandy, you have to deal with the power of the wave and the water rise. So it makes perfect sense to deal with the power of the wave, of the flooding, as far from your front door as you can get. So that's those islands. There is a king boardwalk, which is kind of the second step. Dispersing or dispersing the water into the directions you want to have it, instead of trying to figure out where you don't want to have it. And besides that, it creates an interesting urban landscape. A boardwalk that's parallel to the coast is less interesting than one that shifts your focus from the development towards the sea and back. And again, it's a double function. Those elements that disperse the storm also have their value in the ecological plan. I have to speed up a little bit. But then the main thing, being back to where we all started in this plan, by the people on the street, we want to give them something that is their home, which is specifically hard, I guess, for architects to kind of know what the people want. So we did a lot of community workshops to figure out what the people want and what they need. And we guess we came quite far. Thank you.
So, hello, my name is Marcelo, and I'm the founder of Crowd Places, a company that I'm here to show you. So, we are a startup that is willing to find creative solutions for cities, but at the same time, we are also a social enterprise that, by concepts, makes profit by solving a social issue in the city. So, this is the social issue we are trying to solve in the city of São Paulo, in Brazil, where I've come from. So our public plazas would mostly look like that, and we are trying to figure out a solution or how to solve this problem. So when we look to this picture, we see three main problems. So we see a problem of project, or the lack of project, maintenance, or the lack of maintenance, and also the scale, because it happens all around the city. So if we really want to be successful of solving this social issue, we have to come up with an idea or a solution that solves all of those three problems, and that's what we are trying to do. So for the first thing, project, what we want to do, it's basically what everyone's doing here, placemaking, and trying to make a collaborative process with everyone, the people in the community. And then we try to open a dialogue with them and call for an open meeting and wish they appear. But this is what actually happens. Like no one appears, or just a very few people goes there. So we have to come up with a different solution, different model that will engage people to participate in a really good way that they would go. So what we are trying to do, it's an online platform of engagement that would be really fast and easy. So people would give their idea in just 5 minutes, and that's enough for them. In a way that is really fun, that we engage them to participate again. So the whole process would be so nice that we would have more people through time instead of having less people as it is today. So we have a lot of ideas on how to do it. I'm going to show just really few ones. So you could have a brainstorming area, or people would give ideas and vote on someone else's ideas. With this, we would propose, as a company, we would propose some designs. Instead of having one design, we could have 3 scenarios, and people would vote on those scenarios. And during the construction of the chosen scenarios, we could have transparency things. So we're going to show the pictures of the construction and for them to see and engage. And also after the inauguration of the new plaza, would have a monitoring evaluation. People would give their feedbacks on how it's going, and then maybe we have to redo it again. So this is what we call co-created cities. And now for maintenance. So in the Brazilian context, that's where we figure out that you cannot be only a consultant or a placemaking consultants company, that you do your job and you engage with the community and then you go and you leave. Because then you should come back after 1 year. Everything's going to be back again. So we decided that we're going to do it as a service. We're also going to do the whole maintenance with gardeners and stuff like that. So the idea is that we're going to go into a plaza and we never leave. But this is not really what we wanted to do. We are doing it because we have to do, because if we don't do it, no one's going to do it. But what we really like to do is that the plaza, we're going to have their own website. So we're going to produce content for the people there. And people would be able to engage between each other. So if you apply for the whole process, you become a friend of the plaza. And then you can interact between each other. And what is most important for us is the cultural agenda of the plaza. So people would be able to propose events and put in the calendar and find someone else that wants also to do it. But we really think that the most simple things might work. I like to run every day in the morning, but I'm afraid of going alone because of safety issues. So I can actually propose a running group every day at 8 o'clock or something, and find at least one person that would go with me, and then we could activate the plaza with no money at all. So this is what we call co-managed cities. Yeah, and then for the third one, the scale is the idea that we're going to do our first plaza. We are about to start our first plaza. But then after that, we want to do one plaza per region in the city. And then after that, we want to do one per neighborhood. So we really hope to get at this stage. So we're going to have one decent plaza per neighborhood, well-maintained, and with their own cultural agenda. And imagine we've achieved this point and we connect them all to the same system. So then you're going to have all the cultural agendas of all of the plaza exactly in the same place. So you're going to have the whole cultural agenda for the whole city. So this is what we call connected cities. So these 3 things together is our first project of the company. And we call it praças.com. That is plazas, the word for plazas in Portuguese. So we're going to start our pilot project together with the municipality. So that's the plaza we are starting. So very similar to the other picture I show you. So you have garbage, lack of maintenance. Lack of maintenance, and even a toilet is over there. So that's how plazas in Brazil are like. Achievements so far, in 2 weeks, we had 200 people applied, so we had 200 friends of the plaza in the website already. We were selected by this NGO in Brazil, so we are one of the 50 social initiatives of the whole Brazil. More than 400 projects were applied. And then we even got on TV, so in 1 week we had 100 friends of the plaza, and then TV got interested in us, so we were on TV. And so, yeah, that's to end. This is what it is. So we are a social enterprise that work with public spaces, and when I do that with a participatory process through online engagement. Yeah, and so in one word, it will be public spaces, but actually public places because we're doing public placemaking thing. But we want to crowdsource that, so we are like a crowd places. That's what we are. Thank you.
Hi, that was a quick flick. My name's Rebecca Clarkson. I work with a cultural organisation in Perth, Western Australia, a very suburban city on the west coast of Australia, a very long way from here. I work with Form. So we are a creative organisation. We work at what we call the nexus of creativity, community and place. And we seek to build a state of creativity in Western Australia, from our central business district right out to our regions. We combine artistic excellence and community development to challenge how people experience place. In Perth, we have a lack of use. Our places are maintained extremely well, but no one is there. So we like to challenge and stir things up. Give the artist kiss to awaken the city, to quote someone from earlier this morning. So our program, Public, is a 3-year celebration of art and ideas. We use street art as a medium to take the artistic process out onto the street and just splash a lot of colour everywhere and create a huge public intervention. There's 4 components of Public, so creative placemaking and demonstration, a street art program where we bring international artists and use a lot of our local talent as well to create murals and outdoor galleries. We've had a symposium this year where we invited thought leaders over to encourage and incite discussion and dialogue with our city. And then we have 100 Hampton Road, which is a project in a project-like setting, so in our housing development of low-income and welfare individuals, that's causing some really exciting outcomes for people of high needs. So creativity is a public good, exploring it out in the open, and encouraging the residents of Perth, of my city, to actually play in public space and see the possibility and the endless opportunity that can have, and removing some of those barriers and those rules. We've had some really great impact. It hasn't been without its challenges. Working with multiple local governments who have extremely complex rules that change in all the different areas. Over the last 2 years, we've engaged 85 local businesses in the process and developed 135 art works across Perth and our regions. And this has been a fantastic outcome because we've put art out on the street and we've allowed the public to be part of the process of creating art and murals. We've transformed 16 public spaces and high streets in 7 communities across my city and my region, and we've engaged over 100 artists and invested significant amounts of money in artist development, connecting them internationally, nationally and locally, and getting active commissions from an outcome of this work. Our symposium this year, where we brought thought leaders from around the world and Australia to discuss some of these critical issues facing my city, and inspired a local legacy of 100,000 citizens to get actively involved in creating, in that citizen-led placemaking, because that's really when we are a success, when people start using public space in different ways. That slide that Ludo put up of the kids crawling through the bicycle racks this afternoon was just what I thought is symbolic of great placemaking. The symposium has initiated a broader dialogue between macro, the government level spokespeople, and those on the ground so that we can start discussing what public space should be. We've worked from our inner city to our regions, so we take it from the central business districts and apply it out in country towns to inspire residents and involve residents in the co-creation of public spaces and places. And the international reach and thought leadership is really, really important. This constant circulation of ideas that start maybe in a small little slum in South Africa and can be transported into a larger city like New York is really, really exciting. So if you'd like to know more information, of course, I'll be around for the next couple of days, but the forum website is really full of information and yeah, ask questions. Thank you everyone for today.
Well, thank you everybody. Very impressive. I would like to thank you for respecting the time, so we leave this room as friends. I'm sure many of you, as me, having questions and would like to discuss more with these people. But we have time, 1 hour out, for some drinks and barbecues and mingling, the same place that we had lunch. So you can continue your talk. And please don't forget that tomorrow we will start at 8:45. So see you tomorrow. Thank you.